Lazarus Planet Various is so basically this section is Lazarus Planet catch up. There's a couple of stories from a few of these over the last few weeks. We kind of decided after the first two that we didn't really want to read all these one shots, but what they've effectively acted as for the most part is that a lot of them are just stories that are setting up later things in the year, whether it be miniseries or new books or
back in the day when I was reading Wizard magazine, they would offer these mailaways, right? And all you had to do is pay for postage, and they were 0 issues, and they were like these promotionary style things that the Marvel and DC usually would put out. These felt like 0 issues of the comics. They're just little teases of what's to come with these characters.
But it's a lot of them because it's like 6 or 7 one shots over the space of 2 months.
Yeah.
So we'll look at a story from Legends Reborn first. So we probably wouldn't rate any of these because we're not doing any full issues. But so this is the City Boys story that's in this by Greg Pak and Mikayu Jung, who are the team that are going to be on the miniseries that comes out starting in May. And it was the character arriving in the city. And very quickly, he touches the ground. So he already has a power. Like, he already has part of his power, because he touches the ground and he sees, like, kind of the... Almost like, I don't want to say the blueprints, but he sees, like, sort of like a...
It's like not a blueprint. What's the word I'm looking for here?
It's like connections. He sees connections under the ground that, like, connected with the... And he finds a batarang under a bench. And then the Lazarus rain kind of strikes him, and that's when this weird, like, rat made of trash forms in front of them, and becomes kind of his little pet here. And he ends up going down the ground, which he can do, by the way, just by touching it. He kind of, I wouldn't say he phases through. It's more like it's probably closer to
it absorbs him, kind of.
Yeah, it's kind of close to what Sand from like JSA kind of does, but not. It doesn't look the exact same, but it's kind of similar.
No. Yeah.
Kind of similar. Nightwing kind of catches wind of this and sort of follows him down at the sewer, and goes after him, tries to save him from drowning. But he's looking for this tiara down there, and when he touches it, he sees like the history of it, and he sees this young woman who loses it. It flies off into the water, and she's then like arrested for losing it, seemingly. And she spends time in jail, and now she's an old woman. And this is what he was here to do. So, like, it's hooked to make us care about him and like him and see empathy in him, is that he's getting this to give to this old woman who's been miserable all these years, and he drops it off at the end of the story. It's kind of a sweet moment. And he gives Nightwing his batarang back because it was a real one. So that's basically the story.
Not before, if I remember right, he gives him a ration a little bit of it not being as valuable or something. Like, there's a quip that City Boy gives him. It's like, oh, you can have this back. I wouldn't get much for it anyways. Something like that. Yeah. So shows his character a little bit. He's a bit of a hustler, you know. I got a little confused at the name because I trying to remember that character that we met in Ram V Swamp Thing. That like the guy that could talk to cities, you know. Because there was that whole part with the Parliament of Gears. And stuff, so I thought it would be more like that, and it's a little bit different. So
yeah, it's a little different. No, this is it's an interesting power. It's certainly out of the power sets that are shown in these short stories, this was the one that seemed the most interesting to me because it felt very unique.
It stood out, and then versus some of these other stories that we've gotten.
Yeah, I'm very glad to have Pac back at DC, and it makes me excited to read more of this when it comes out. This is probably the one conceptually I'm the most interested in, just based on the short story. This was the only one that I read from this particular issue. So
I've read them all, but with my brain being what it is lately, I don't remember what else was in that one. Yeah, I remember that story very well.
Yeah, but you read this a week or two ago, so it's not like it's fresh in your brain.
No, 2 weeks ago at this point.
So the next one that has a story in it that I wanted to mention, Lazarus Planet: The Next Evolution. Issue 1. This has the Ram V story. The Vigil. This one is in some ways is the weakest though, not because it's badly written, but just because it's actually following Red Hood investigate something, and then the Vigil just show up kind of really towards the end, and we only get the briefest of glimpses of who they are, which is fine from like an introduction point of view. We see like how skilled they are, like.
Yeah, it keeps them in mystery too. right? Like,
Yeah.
because we never get a full good look, and we only get Jason's reaction to them. So
Yeah, like we see kind of like the very acrobatic one sort of dodging bullets, so we don't really get a good sense of what their powers are necessarily.
I believe her name is Dodge, based off of the solicit and
That's probably a
cover.
wise guess, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's one with the white mask with the red stripes on it. Yeah. So yeah, we see 3 of them here in this, and they just kind of like sort of, you know, we're not enemies unless you really want us to be, Red Hood. We're on the same side, and they go away in a little boat, and that's it. Then it's like, see you soon. So as far as introducing the characters goes, this is probably the least information we get out of any of them. Yeah. So it's hard. It's
mainly all set up for the, you know, like I said, it's like a 0 issue, in that. So we get the Barris.
Yeah, but barely though. The City Boy one still gives you more of what he does and who the character is. This this doesn't do that. So what I'm saying is that I think these characters, they seem like they might be entertaining and fun, but I don't really know yet because like I haven't really had enough of them to.
I was kind of disappointed because I picked up this issue because of Ram on the title, and then there was these characters that I wasn't familiar with and brand new. Did not realize at the time they were going to be getting their own book, right? So I'm like, where is this leading to? Are they going to show up in like tech or whatever? And then we find out this week they're getting their new books.
I mean, I'm excited for the book because it's Ram V, and I'm assuming he'll make an interesting group of characters that we'll get into. There's just not a lot to glean from this short story that introduces them, because it doesn't really introduce them. It just teases they exist, basically. So that was that. There was another story in this I read because it caught my eye after it, and it's a Flatline story. And it caught my eye partly because I saw the last page and went, wait a minute, I feel like I need to know what's going on here. So Flatline is being called to, like, she's got this new, well, kind of a new power from the Lazarus Reign, which the dead's calling to her, and she goes to like a hideout that she's been drawn to, fight some League of Assassins, particularly Ubu, who's there, who's Ra's al Ghul's old bodyguard. And the end of this issue, the big thing that we need to talk about is the fact that she seemingly brings Raz back to life. She opens his urn, and her power, whatever it is, from the Lazarus resin, just makes him appear again. And he's like, "Ah, yes, I'm back. Don't mind Ubu. Try to protect my urn."
Also, don't mind the fact that we saw Ubu die at the hands of the Orgums in tech. And the voice for this Ubu was not. It was a rough read. Also, when she opened the urn, all I could think of was Undertaker and Paul Bearer. Just Sure. So I mean, I'm never mad at more Flatline. I'm curious to see where this goes because, of course, something called Lazarus Planet. I'm expecting some form of Ogul. Was not expecting a Fallen Resurrection, and I don't think this is what it's going to be. I think there's a little bit, something else going on.
There could be more to it. I mean, I like the Laura Braga art. I like the voice for, I thought Flatline was fine. Like her kind of talking about Damien as kind of this like weird boyfriend she has is kind of entertaining. So, what was that noise?
The Ubu dialogue was rough for me. There's just the cadence was weird, and it just wasn't. Not that I'm like I have a familiar.
Yeah, I don't think
I'm familiar with Ubu, but it was just the dialogue. Yeah, this could have been any henchman.
I don't think I know his dialogue enough to even notice that something was off, to be honest. Yeah. But
it's just any henchman. It just felt weird and stilted, and not the way people tend to talk. So, yeah.
But I mean, honestly, I read it because it seemed like I should probably know that Ra's al Ghul was alive again, and okay, why is he alive? Okay, it's something to do with Flatline's new power. Fine. So
what? Remind me what her actual power is. I know it has something to do with she sees the dead, so she can permanently assimilate the skills and knowledge of anyone who dies in her hands.
Yeah, well, she mentions that in this short story. She got her skills from her her grandfather, who was like an assassin or something like that.
But I couldn't remember exactly what they were. I just remember she's a really good fighter from the League of Lazarus stuff. So
yeah. So the one that came out this week was Lazarus Planet Dark Fate. I actually read 3 of the 4 of these stories. There's only one that I skipped. The first one's a Huntress story by Tim Seeley and Valdemar Rivas. And it's all right. Like I didn't love it, but like I'm down for more Huntress.
I'm down for this because it seems like it's doing stuff of, and I don't think it is the crime Bible, but it feels very much of the crime Bible in that like it's this cult that's popping up around Killer Moth as the anti-Batman, and it seems like a higher power is talking to him, and Helena's talking about how she was raised, like her and Batman will never see eye to eye because she was raised by the mob basically, and she's sees crime from a different perspective than Batman does. It's not just this black and white thing, and she can hear this higher voice talking to her too. And then you get to the end, she talks about that it's her own conscience, and she has to come above that, and that's what makes her Huntress. I thought it was a very interesting take, and seeing her fight through all of these different characters through Arkham Tower, I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, we had Onomatopoeia. We had what was the other character after him?
Yeah, Onomatopoeia. You had the Musketeer guy, or the Cavalier, not the Musketeer. Killer Moth, and there was one more. Who else was?
Well, it builds up to Killer Moth because Killer Moth's the one who's sort of leading the cult and saying that he's like the criminals version of Batman. He's there to like rescue the villains effectively.
Yeah, it was the guy that
the Zodiac Zodiac Master.
Yeah, well, and then there was one more too that was speaking in Latin, and that Batman had come up against before. Was that the Zodiac guy? No, there's another one. Anyways, I like the concept of it. I'm curious to see where this goes from here, because I like that Helena is kind of tied to Arkham Tower since that Tamaki run, right? And she feels like she has unfinished business there. So yeah, surprised how much I like this one.
Yeah, the thing here to note is at the end, the Lazarus rain is like dripping down into like a cell at the bottom. I mean, like my first guess was
someone that was asleep, right? That they mentioned.
It says danger, do not wake. I mean, my first guess was Croc just because it was in the sort of basement area, but like, right. I mean, I don't really know. It does say though to be continued somewhere in 2023, and I don't think we know where this is going to be continued yet. No. It could be in a Bat book, it could be in a miniseries, it could be in a number of things. We don't know. But it is setting up something for later in the year, so worth pointing out. But it was an alright story. And then the second story, which I was delighted when I got to the second page and realized what it was. It's a little lead into the Doom Patrol mini that's coming. And when I say it's a lead in, all I really mean is that it's a little adventure with the Doom Patrol characters and sets up who the new chief is by the end. Just so we've got like a new status quo, get into this new mini. And I'm assuming the miniseries will explain this more in depth anyway. But basically, the Doom Patrol are called in by this military a general.
Someone that used to know Trainer, right? He was his commanding officer at one point.
Yeah. So it's Elasta Woman, Robot Man, and Negative Man who show up, and basically this Lazarus Rain's created a new meta-human out of one of the soldiers into space. So the Doom Patrol are set in, and we find out that he's been kind of taking over other soldiers, and he's got all these like demonic clowns and just all this fungus around, and the Doom Patrol start to get like trapped by it, and it turns out that only Negative Man isn't like affected. Something to do with his radiation in his body stops this sort of like growth like coming over him. Even Chainsaw Nun shows up as backup, and she gets like defeated. So
this is the first experience I had with Chainsaw Nun, and it was a delight. Like,
I mean, it's a great page turn because like, hey, we need backup, and like someone says, okay, we're sending in backup, and you turn the page, and it's like Chainsaw Nun who has chainsaws like growing out of her hands. Looking quite demented. What is
this? This is light and fun.
It's very Silver Agey feeling, I would say. So yeah, Negative Man goes and talks to the person at the epicenter of this, who's this kind of. It's funny that The Last of Us is airing right now because this is like a fungus person. They've got mushrooms growing out of their head, and Negative Man basically says, "Look, let us help you deal with what's happened to you." And this person's obviously scared and depressed and acting out. And Negative Man's like, "Look, I was in shock when what happened to me happened, and I'm still here. I've learned to cope with it and start a new life with this condition." And basically convinces this character to come back with a Doom Patrol, which the military guy's not happy about. But they're like, "No, we're taking that this character deserves the same, the same care and affection that the rest of the Doom Patrol get.
Yeah, because what the Doom Patrol offers, right? Is the and this military guy wants to talk to the chief.
So I suppose that's the other thing it sets up, is that this character may actually be a new member in the book. The miniseries may actually have this character as a new ongoing character.
Yeah.
So that's very cool. Yeah. So
do you want to say who the new? Do you want to say who the new chief is?
Well, yeah. So the guy like mentions, Dr. Calder, blah blah blah, and then Chainsaw Man swoops in and says, yeah, they're not the new chief. And then it turns out that it's one of the personalities of Crazy Jane, which we should mention as well. Chainsaw Man's one of the personalities as well, like just to make that clear, because I don't think we did make that clear.
No,
that's also a Crazy Jane character, because they mention, because obviously one of the other Crazy Jane characters we see is what's her name, Flint. 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 That's the one that can teleport, which they make good use of, as Flint teleports them into the scene and then teleports them away at the end. But it's one of the Crazy Jane personalities as the new leader of the Doom Patrol, which is a really interesting way of pivoting. She's in like a business suit. She's got like a sort of gold
half mask kind of going.
Kind of like just a gold face mask, basically, as if she's still in the pandemic.
Right.
But honestly,
very enjoyable. This is the most I've enjoyed Doom Patrol in a long time.
I was looking forward to the miniseries. This just kind of like affirmed me. I was like, oh, cool. Like, I like this. I'm looking forward to it. I'm into it. Give it to me, kind of thing.
Yeah, them going and finding these, people changed by the reins or whatever it's going to be. I think that's a good use of.
Honestly, it makes me want to go back and continue Morrison's run. It makes me want to go back and read the Jared Way stuff.
Yeah.
From was that early Rebirth? That stuff was coming.
That was Young Animal. So
that was before I'd read Doom Patrol. So that series was really confusing when I tried it. But now I'm a lot more well versed.
Yeah. I mean, you have a lot better handle on characters than I do. So I got up to like issue 8 or 9 of the Morrison stuff. And I had to tap out. It was getting too weird for my liking. So yeah.
Oh, that's great. I skipped the next story. I looked at it and went, I don't look like
it's so this kid that lives in the Nevada desert where they want to put nuclear fallout waste. The fight between the Flash and the Turtle had came through there. So what him and his friend do is they put on a one-man show or a 2-person show where they alternate playing the Flash and the Turtle. And the Lazarus Rain manifests there, and it instills him with the Still Force. And so, and instills him and someone else with like this explosion of energy. He's able to use the Still Force to stop the explosion and basically take it away and essentially act as a circuit breaker. He's able to channel energy and stop it from going anywhere else as like an overflow. So Avery shows up because she feels it like a Speed Force-y thing.
Avery, the Flash character.
The Flash character. And thinks that he's the Turtle because he's wearing his green turtle costume from the stage show that he does. And he goes, oh, no, this is all new. And she goes, oh, okay, well, I learned that the Flash needs friends and family, and there's to be continued in another special coming out this summer. So it was okay. Like, it wasn't the best. It took me a little bit to get through, just because it's such a weird concept for an introduction for characters. But
yeah, I looked at the art. I was like, you know what? I don't think I want to read this one, and
it was iffy.
I just skipped it. So. Yeah, I just skipped it. The last story, of course, though, is the one that was the more relevant, the reason why I wanted to read some of these stories, and that is the Spirit World story by Alyssa Wong and Haining, who are going to be on the miniseries when it comes out. So there's definitely some Japanese like video game / anime influence in the art of this.
Yes.
Just because the main character has this stupid big sword, which is very Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Very, 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 very Final Fantasy. And then so basically we goes into a cemetery and starts like hacking away at the hopping which I guess this hopping vampire or hopping zombie thing is a real thing, because I watched a movie right called Robo Vampire, and
God, such a Pete movie to watch.
It's a really stupid movie, right? But there's these vampires in it who just sort of hop like really, and they've got their arms out and they just kind of hop towards people. and I just thought it made me laugh so much because it was just so stupid. But this is the third time I've seen it referenced in something,
Yeah.
and I'm like, is this actually a thing in like Asian lore?
I think Asian, yeah. So Asian spirits and monsters are quite a bit different than the Western. There's a lot more with the folklore and why they hop and stuff, and I'm not too familiar with these. I have heard of them though, from myth and legends type stuff. So to see that, and these ones seem more like spirits more than like actual vampires, like like flesh and blood here. So yeah.
So the main character is called Xanthe. Just
Xanthe,
so
yeah.
we've got a name for them. Cassandra Cain shows up to help fight the villains, and they make a point of mentioning that Cassandra Cain is the only Bat character who usually comes into Chinatown.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, oh, okay, so this is, she like patrols this area that none of the other Bat characters do more often.
I also like the idea that Xanthe was just talking out loud and hoping one of the Bat members was showing up. And I like Cass asked him, what were you gonna do if I wasn't there? He's like, be very embarrassed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty funny.
So the big thing is Constantine also shows up, and chaos happens. All of the spirits and whatever all combine Transformer style into like a weird tree demon thing. And it's like, okay, we have to fight back. But the cliffhanger, and it does have a cliffhanger, is Cassandra gets shifted into the spirit world, which is something it's the name of the book, so I assume it's going to be explored. It'll be explained more in depth in the actual miniseries.
So they talk about that also, that Xanthe can go through the gateway, that happened to be under that tree creature, right? And that was the reason that the hopping vampires were coming out and whatever, and that Constantine was alerted to it. So the fact that when they defeated this tree monster thing, it pulled Cass into, it seemed like a collateral damage kind of deal.
Yeah. So obviously it's a little bit rushed because it's only 10 pages or whatever, but it does have a cliffhanger that leads into what this miniseries is going to be. It involves Cass, which is nice. It's probably the one I'm least excited about, just because again, it's as far as the creative team goes, I'm just more excited for the other two based on the names. But I thought this flowed well. Some of the lines made me laugh. There was enough potential here that I'm into.
The idea that Xanthe is the type of person that can flim-flam Constantine, I thought was pretty funny as well.
Yeah.
Because Constantine starts yelling like, "You sold me these magical papers." Like, well, you weren't using them right. They're they'll manifest in the spirit world, which is I'm sure will come into play for Cass. Like, needing to get her things, all these papers will come back through. But yeah, just the idea that Constantine got worked here, by Xanthe, I thought was pretty funny, because not that I'm that familiar with Constantine, but Constantine's usually the one that's pulling one over on other people. So
yeah,
but it was all right. I'm not a fan of the art though. That's just me. It's a taste thing. It was okay, but it wasn't like you're talking about. There's some anime or manga flourishes in there.
I was saying that more in a design aesthetic as opposed to the art itself. I mean, not that the art itself doesn't have any influence, but it was more just the design of the big sword and all that stuff.
But like even some of the faces and stuff are feeling of that style, and it all feels very much by choice.
I will say that the concept of this, like the spirit world and the more magic-y side of things, does mean that this also has maybe the biggest chance of being the one that I don't like as much.
Yeah.
But I'll give it a fair shake. I certainly enjoyed the characterization enough in this story to at least give it a try when it comes out.
Yeah.
But it's definitely the one out of the three that's the more tenuous. Like, it's the one that's closer to the, But we'll see. So yeah, that was quite a little chunk of talking about comics there. But like, it felt. It was a quieter week. It felt worth going back and looking at some of the relevant stories that were leading into these new books. So hopefully this was an interest, especially if you didn't read all of these or you didn't check out these one shots. Hopefully this was just a little bit of informative catch up and maybe some of the more relevant things that they've done.